Welcome to the Exam Room Podcast, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I'm the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Betty Mizek is a widowmaker heart attack survivor. At one point, her blood sugar was raging out of control, well over 500 points. She had near complete blockages in both of her arteries, but she survives this heart attack. And she decides, I want to make the most out of this life. I want to live, but I don't know how to do that. How do I do that? Well, at this time, her triglycerides were way up. But what she figured out was a way to drop them by 60 points. And her cholesterol, that plummets by 140 points. But her health outlook, that then, with these changes, goes way up. Through the roof. Healthier than ever. And how did she do it? It wasn't a magical pill. For Betty, it was what she was eating. Betty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for asking me.
I mean, your story is really remarkable, what you've been able to accomplish. And I will say that when I was told about what you had been through and how much you have improved, I mean, my jaw just dropped. So I understand that you had almost a near-death experience. Is that correct?
Well, I had a heart attack.
Yeah.
In April of 2016, and it was a wake-up call. I'm a medical social worker. I take care of everyone else, and basically, it was time for me to take care of myself. And fortunately, I lived, and I knew I had to change.
Right.
And so, all the pieces fell into place. And I don't know how much you want to know of the story, but basically, I had a neighbor who was eating plant-based, and I came home from the hospital, and after one day,
right,
I did have a stent put in. I had 90% blockage in my right artery.
Well, let me actually back that up a little bit. Walk me through the day that you had the heart attack. Okay. Start at the morning, and just how did that day progress?
Well, I woke up and I felt really strange, and so I thought my blood sugar was low, and I checked, and it was like over 500. And so I thought my pump had become dislodged.
And you're a type 1 diabetic.
Type 1 diabetic. And then I had this enormous pain. They say it's like an elephant sitting on your chest. And I said to my husband, I think I'm having a heart attack. He said, no, you're not. And I said, no, I think I should call my doctor. So I called my cardiologist. I have his cell phone number because he sees my clients. And he said, call 911 and take 3 aspirin. And I called 911, and they said, take 3 more aspirin, and I did. And then the rest is kind of a fog. My husband can probably give more details, but basically they were actually, it's really kind of bizarre because they were focusing on the diabetes and not the heart. And there's a certain level, it's called a troponin level. And if you've had a heart event, it elevates. And mine didn't. And they were going to send me home. And this doctor came in and she said, something is not right,
Clearly.
And they put me in the PICU, and then they found out that it was a heart attack. And I had an angiogram the next morning, and I had an LAD 70% blocked and right artery 90%.
You can tell that you work in the medical field using all those fancy acronyms.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, LAD is called the widowmaker. If that one goes, you don't survive. And so, it's hard to tell the story again because I still have a lot of emotion about it.
Sure.
But I knew I got up that night. It was Sunday. And I went in the bathroom, and I just looked in the mirror, and I said, I've got to change.
Right.
And so I went home, and I read Dr. Esselstyn's book, Reversing Heart Disease. And it's funny because I told Dr. Esselstyn that, and I said I read it in one sitting, and he said, but it's only 90 pages. And because I had heard about it from my neighbor, and then I called my neighbor, and I said, how did you do it? And then a miracle occurred. he brought me a brochure from PCRM, and he said, you need to call these people.
Yeah.
Because I had looked on the web for support, couldn't find it, and I start coming here. And since April, this happened on, in April 2016, and I never went back. I just went cold turkey.
That's kind of the way to go. There's studies that will show that people who, whatever the change they make in life, whatever that change may be, if they go cold turkey, they have a higher rate of success. So, but you had this epiphany. You had this real serious wake-up call.
Right.
And you just went all in on this. And it sounds to me, before we started rolling, we were talking a little bit about your family, and it sounds like you had a tremendous amount of support.
Right. My husband, he also decided to eat this way. Mm-hmm. And he has had remarkable improvement in his kidney function. And we sat up in Baltimore with the number one nephrologist who was saying, this just doesn't happen. People don't get better. And I just really can't explain it.
Wow.
But he's supportive. He's supportive of the plant-based, but he's like on the board of the Kidney Foundation, and people just don't talk about diet.
Right.
And in September of 2015, my cholesterol was 257. Last week, it was 152.
Look at you.
Yeah, triglycerides were 154, and now they're 58. That's just a small sample. But the biggest news is that my the cardio risk factor, the CRP, was 4.17. And for you doctors out there, you know what this means. And my cardiologist said, if you don't do something, you're going to predecease your clients.
Right. Because
I work with the elderly, and we need to help you. But nobody ever said anything about diet.
So 4.17, and you should be at...
That's high risk. And now I'm at 1.49, and anything less than 1 is no risk.
Continuing to fall, I assume?
Yes.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Hemoglobin A1C has come down 2.2 points, still working on that. It's hard, But I think the main issue is that for the first time in 43 years of having type 1 diabetes, I felt like I had control over that my life could get better. Dr. Barnard asked me, why did you have a cardiologist? And I said, because if you're diabetic, you're going to die from heart disease.
Yeah.
Everybody has a cardiologist. And so for the first time, I realized I can actually do something about my health, and it's very empowering. I feel good now.
Yeah.
I feel great. And, but the support of my husband was great. And then coming to the 12-week course, I'm telling you, that was the best thing I did. I came every week. I think I came to every session. I was so proud of myself. And I'm also
all in.
I wouldn't say I'm a type A personality, but when I'm committed to something, I do it.
Yeah.
And the results were, I'd be getting blood tests and running down to my neighbor and sharing them. I mean, I just was so happy.
Yeah.
And, my latest blood work, I had nothing abnormal.
Look at you go. Look at you go.
And also the other thing that I didn't really start to do it, but I lost 25 pounds. I've gone from a size 14 to size 10.
And it takes a real woman to talk about her dress size.
I know.
My hat is off to you right now. That is a closely guarded secret in most circles.
Right. I even wore 16 and something, believe it or not. And now I had to buy a belt for the first time.
Wow.
I now have belts because my pants fall off if I don't wear a belt. And, so that's a nice byproduct. Yeah. But, and I'm taking less insulin. So I guess I wanted to tell my story because I want people to know, especially women diabetics, my heart attack did not present like the usual. I had heartburn for a month before, and that was unusual. And I've later learned that's significant for right artery blockage. So that there is an option, the whole food is medicine. And I was very motivated. And I felt better. And it is very hard. It's still,
Yeah.
there's some things that are very hard. You know,
Yeah.
people say, what do you miss the most? And you're going to laugh when I tell you. Fried chicken.
Is that right?
So, but Whole Foods, which is my happy place,
Indeed it is.
Whole Foods has tofu fried chicken, which I occasionally splurge. But when you stop eating fat, sugar, and salt, you stop craving fat, sugar, and salt.
Sure.
And I don't eat desserts anymore. I was the diabetic, and you know who you are out there, where you would eat a dessert and then you take more insulin.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not very helpful.
I want to ask you about your motivation for doing this. You have a wonderfully supportive husband, but you also have grandchildren that you wanted to be around to
Yes.
see them grow up.
Yes. I have a granddaughter and a grandson, and I wanted to be around for her. Both of them, actually, and my family. And, you know, and now I feel like that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a big motivating factor. But also, how could I take care of everybody else and not take care of myself?
Right. You have to put yourself first.
And food is a big deal. And I work with assisted living facilities. And I had a conversation yesterday with two of my clients who were complaining about the food. Too much butter, too much, overcooked vegetables. And I realized that some of my clients, they move into assisted living and they gain weight.
Wow.
And so, I guess that's my next cause, but I'm really stressing that if you are diabetic or not even diabetic and you have high numbers, to definitely give this a try.
Just a remarkable story, and just congratulations for not only surviving but thriving, and now using your story to affect change. People are going
Right.
to hear this, and hopefully they will be inspired to take better care of themselves as well.
Yeah.
That's what this podcast is all about, and
Right.
that's what you're bringing to the table.
Right. Thank you for letting me do that. And I really do encourage people. And your friends, they will come around.
Yeah.
And but there's people. It's the positive atmosphere that you were talking about. A lot of people like to stay in the negative.
Yeah, they do.
So
We just need to rethink the way that we think.
right.
So, Betty, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for inviting me.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for the Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.